Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, a budget is a statement of priorities and values, and I worked hard on the Every Student Succeeds Act, and I'm deeply disappointed that the President's budget would zero out funding for Title IV-A grants. These are the flexible block grants that support well-rounded education, arts, civics, safe and healthy schools, technology. So all students benefit, not just those in wealthy districts or neighborhoods. These grants have bipartisan support. They're an essential part of ESSA. It's unacceptable that the department does not see their value. So previously, you told me that Title IV-A funds are spread too thin to be effective. If that's your position, isn't the logical thing to fully fund Title IV-A grants rather than eliminate them, which exacerbates inequality of opportunity? And that's a yes or no question.
Well, Congresswoman, it's not a yes or no answer because we had to put forward a budget that met the requirement of a 10% reduction overall, so we had to make difficult choices.
Well, and I need to reclaim my time and move on to another question, but you told me that they're spread too thin, so the logical thing is to fully fund them rather than spread them too thin. Now, I want to ask you about ACICS. The Department of Education fully reinstated ACICS as a recognized accreditor, even after they oversaw some of the largest collapses of institutions of higher education in American history, Corinthian colleges, ITT Tech, and after they were reinstated, ECA, and in every case, ACICS disregarded clear warning signs and failed to act quickly enough to protect students and taxpayers. So last year, several of my colleagues and I sent you 2 letters about this. We urge you to rescind the decision. We expressed concern that the department's decision was based, at least in part, on erroneous and misleading information, including claims that ACICS secured endorsement and support from other accrediting agencies, which turned out to be false. We also requested the information and documentation that you considered. So you have not answered the letter, so rather than having us wait longer, please explain why did the department fully reinstate an accreditor that repeatedly accredited schools that harm students?
Well, Congresswoman, it is a provisional reinstatement. There are still a couple of provisions that ACICS has to address, and it's important to note that we were ordered by the court to re-examine the ACICS case. 36,000 pages of information the previous administration did not even acknowledge or deal with in this process, and so we did so. It was a very in-depth review and study, and the reinstatement came with a review of all of that information that heretofore had not been considered.
And reclaiming my time, do you have a time frame, excuse me, for responding to those letters? Because we sent them last year. Can we get them in the next 2 weeks?
I will certainly look into it, yes.
Thank you. We do need that underlying information, what you considered, because again, some of it was, information was false. I have another question. Yesterday, the Civil Rights Subcommittee held a hearing on the Equality Act. We know that transgender students are frequently bullied and victimized. We know also that the 2016 guidance to schools about transgender students was applauded by education experts, healthcare experts, educators, counselors, pediatricians, psychologists, because it made students safer at school. But your department rolled back that guidance, creating uncertainty and concern. So I have 2 questions. When you rolled back that guidance, did you know that the stress of harassment and discrimination can lead to lower attendance and grades as well as depression and anxiety for transgender students? Did you know that?
Congressman, OCR is committed to ensuring all students have equal access to an education free from discrimination.
Did you know when, sorry, I would really like an answer. Students and families need to know this. We had a mother of a transgender student here yesterday. We need to know this. Did you know when you rolled back the guidance that the stress of harassment and discrimination can lead to lower attendance and grades as well as depression for transgender students? Did you know that when you rolled back the guidance?
I do know that, but I will say again that OCR is committed to ensuring that all students have access to their education free from discrimination.
Let me ask you this as well. When you rolled back the guidance, did you know that a study recently published by the American Academy of Pediatrics revealed alarming levels of attempted suicide among transgender youth? Did you know that as well when you rolled back that guidance?
I'm aware of that data.
I'm extremely concerned based on what we heard yesterday about the rollback of that guidance. In my remaining time, I want to follow up on Congresswoman Fudge's question about education freedom scholarships. Because a $5 billion tax credit means $5 billion less in revenue. And I do want to point out that you did receive 3 Pinocchios from the Washington Post for trying to say that that was not using public money. It is public money if it's $5 billion less in revenue. That revenue could go to fund Pell Grants, to fund Title IV grants. And I see my time has expired. I yield back.